Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson, your host from Villanova University, and my co-host and partner, as always, the good doctor, Dr. Sonny Sparrow. How are you, Doc?
I'm great, Chuck. I'm looking forward to this one, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, we've had a few of his teammates on this gentleman that's joining us tonight, and we've always had a lot of fun with those guys. And it's nice to get another Husky in the building with us today, Sonny. So why not? When they're on a winning streak, we want to promote those guys, the Big East, promote the conference. Make sure that we're looking out for our brethren. You know what I mean, son?
Chuck, UConn is hot, man. Anything
Oh,
we talk about UConn, that they're on fire right now.
well, of course, they're back-to-back champs, man. You don't get too many of those, I mean, and they have a shot to go 3 for 3. So,
Going for three, baby.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be a crazy season, in the long run for all these teams. I'm watching some of these preseason games, and man, some teams look just okay. Some teams look like they're really, really rusty,
How
and
about
some teams
great?
look great. And I get, what it's from, Sonny. It's the portal. DePaul's got 14 new guys and a new coaching staff.
Right?
Okay. And Villanova's got 10 new guys. Someone else has got 8 or 9 new guys. I mean,
Right.
you got to get used to playing with guys that you haven't played with before. So it's a whole different ball game. The preseason stuff, it's funny because if you look at all the preseason schedules, who's on the schedules, there's a lot of teams that are mid-majors and lower major ones, whereas before it used to be, the blue bloods of the groups, that you'd play against. But, we'll see. We'll see how it works out. It's going to be interesting. But either way, Sonny, the Huskies will be there in March, I believe, if they keep going doing what they're doing,
Well,
especially
that's
with the guy running that ship.
right. And the offense that they run, Luke Murray's offense, right? That's no joke, man. They
Yep.
levels. They have a playbook. You remember talking to him last year?
Oh, yeah.
They have a playbook that's like an NFL playbook.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, it's no
Well,
joke.
without any further ado, we have one of the top 50 Huskies of all time with us today, Sonny. Of
Yep.
all time. Yep. This guy played at UConn between 1985 and 1989. Straight out of St. Anthony's High School. He was an all Big East freshman team. He made the all Big East freshman team. He scored over 1,300 points in his career. And he was the MVP of the school's first NIT championship team. The great Phil Gamble is with us. How are you, Phil?
Welcome,
I'm
Phil.
good. I'm good. Thank y'all for having me. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, absolutely, man. We got to talk a little bit. I guess we got hooked up through Chris Smith, right?
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
good guy. Real good guy.
Chris is the best, and he's an Eagles fan, Sonny. And he's an Eagles
Ah,
Really?
fan. My
ah,
man.
you
How
just
is
hit,
that possible?
that was a little
You know
closer.
what? If everything breaks the way it's supposed to, we'll be at an Eagles game together soon, along with our personal chef, Reggie Williams. He'll be
Uh,
cooking for us again.
So,
So,
so Phil, I mean, are you a Commanders fan? Or are you an Eagles fan? Who you like?
I'm Commanders, big time. Big time.
Okay.
yeah.
Born and raised. Washington.
Thank you. Thank you. I restored my faith. I mean, that's your backyard. That better be.
That's a good segue, Sonny, because we were just going to talk about DC and that's the kind of professionalism I'm talking about, Phil. He comes right in with the Commanders thing.
Doesn't
Real
have
smooth
that
transition, man.
Perfect timing.
All
Perfect
scripted.
timing.
Perfect. Almost like we wrote it up, Phil.
Yeah,
Really.
I got it written right
No.
here.
So anyway, let's get this thing started. St. Anthony's High School in,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
DC. Coach John Thompson coached there, right?
That's right. He coached there way before I got there,
Yeah.
and one of his players coached me, Dwight Datcher, who was there. So he brought me in. The Catholic high school. I grew up in the housing projects of Washington D.C. and I went to Langley Middle School, and he came looking for players, and of course my mother said, we didn't have the money for me to go to a Catholic high school, so he said, yeah, we'll do certain events to earn some money. We'll pay your tuition, and so that's how I ended up there.
Wow. Yeah, and you were the youngest of 9, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah,
had eight brothers and sisters you have, right?
exactly. I have 2 that passed away, my sister and a brother, and so it's 7 of us,
Wow.
remaining. And but yes, I'm the youngest of 9. in the
So
first.
how was it growing up in that house with 9 kids? 'Cause we had Danny Calandrillo on not too long ago, Phil, from Seton Hall. He had 10 brothers and sisters.
Oh my God! So
So
he
yeah, so I can't, so talk about what that was like.
just growing up. I mean, my family is originally from South Carolina, and two of my sisters, my siblings, were born in Cocoa Beach, Florida. When they moved from South Carolina, they moved to Florida, and I was the only one born in Washington D.C. I was the last of the 9 born in Washington D.C. So that's how we ended up in Washington D.C.
Wow.
Now,
So
what was it like at meals? I mean, do you have to work on your elbows and your boxing out? I mean, how did
he's
you?
boxing out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
but, well, to be honest with you, a few of my brothers were out of the house when I was coming up, so they were gone. The first two oldest ones, they was out of the house and gone. But it was still kind of tough. We had to eat what mom prepared. I had to deal with some hand me downs, which kept me going. So we had to learn, and you had to box out, and you had to, what was accepted in the house, you had to take on.
So where you grew up, Phil, that's like basketball central, right? That DMV, Prince George County area, right?
Yes.
Talk about playing. I'm sure, and we talked about this a little bit off the air, but I'm sure that you were one of those park guys that went out. Talk about the runs that you guys played, and I mean, that had to be unbelievable. Some of the runs that you guys got down there with those kind of talented guys.
Exactly. It was I mean, everywhere you went, we went across the city, went to northeast. I grew up in the southwest section of DC. So it was northeast, northwest, southeast. Everywhere you went, you had to, if you was playing basketball, you had to go to those different sections and, and play it against the best players that was in those sections. So but I must admit, I played against some guys coming up, and I watched some good guys coming up in the DC area. Like say for when we used to finish practice in middle school, our coach used to take like 3 or 4 of us over to watch high school basketball, and we used to always go to Mackin High School, Mackin Catholic High School. They had Johnny Dawkins, Dominic Presley,
Yeah.
Dominic Presley that played with Boston College. So
Hmm.
we used to go over there and watch these guys play, and I used to be like, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, I was amazed to see Johnny Dawkins play. I was amazed to see. I got to see other guys like who else? We went to McKinley Tech. I got to see a guy named Slick that played point guard that grew up in our neighborhood. I got to see different players. Michael Graham was another one that came to mind and stuff like that. He went to Spingarn, and so I got to see Ducky Vaughn. He had all these guys that grew up in the Bootney Green. He was another guy that went to Spingarn that played before Sherman Douglas. So we had Tyrone Jones. We had Stretch. He played with Dunbar. We had Anthony Jones that went to Dunbar, that went
Yeah.
to Georgetown. So we had all type of players around there, and it was competitive. And you had to make your name. You had to make your name known. So I got to play against some good players. Even had some good players on my high school team. So that was another thing. But
Who was the toughest player you played against on the playgrounds or in high school before college?
I'm gonna go with Rod Strickland.
Ooh, can't
Rod,
argue that one.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
good one.
yeah. Rod Strickland. They came to our gym. He went to a prep school. He went to a prep school, and they came to play us at our little. We had a little small gym, was basically our cafeteria. When they walked in there, I know they kind of laughed like, "Man, come on, we were really gonna play here." We went into triple overtime against those guys, and Rod Strickland was he turned it out. We pulled it off. We beat them by 2 in the third overtime. But Rod Strickland was one of the best players that I played against. And also I can name another one, Dennis Scott. He was
Yeah,
another
Ooh,
Dennis
one.
Scott was a pretty good player too, right?
Yeah. He
He
could
could
shoot.
shoot it. He
He
could
could
shoot
shoot.
it.
yeah, they could fill it up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. So played against quite a few.
So as you're growing up now you're playing. How did the recruitment start? Who was looking at you? I know Georgetown was one of the guys, right, that were looking at you, one of the schools that
Yes.
was looking. Talk about that experience and
Uh,
who was there at the end?
okay, that was a little different because when I went to St. Anthony's, of coach, of course we had some good players on our team. We had Bobby Winston, Sam Jefferson, Charles Smith that went to Georgetown. All 3 of them went to Georgetown, but they played with me on my high school team. So John came after me first because I was considered like the star player of the team. and ended up, I played in the Capital Classic, and so when he came out, he came to visit me at my home. Mom was excited. The house, my siblings were excited due to I was the first one going to college out of the nine, so it was a
Wow.
big deal. It was a big deal. First one, I was the first one to graduate high school too. If you think about it, some of them they didn't graduate high school. They went back and got their GEDs, but I was the first one to finish high school, the first one to go to college, so it was a big deal. But he pulled up in the neighborhood, and some of my guy friends was hanging around my house at the time where I grew up at, and John Thompson got out, and I went to the porch, and he kind of waved me on to come on because we had to go up and see the athletic director that was up there. I forgot her name, but it was a female that she would show us around and with the academics type stuff, and so that was huge and stuff like that for my family. But it came down with Georgetown. When it was Georgetown, he wanted to redshirt me, and at that time my grades were good. I was like, why you want to redshirt me? Because they had a good team, they had a good squad there, and so Sam Jefferson, Bobby Winston, and Charles Smith, they went on and signed there. And Bobby Winston, me and Bobby played middle school together. And then we played high school together. So Bobby thought I was going to go to Georgetown. And I really wanted to go to Georgetown, but there was a lot going on within the family household. Some siblings that was on the left track, trying to get back to the right track.
Yeah, yeah.
And then my family just came together and they said, hey, won't you get away? And why don't you go to another school out of the city and do what you and make a new name for yourself. So that's how I started. I turned down Georgetown but I had several different offers from Virginia, North Carolina State. Even got a few letters from Villanova.
There you go.
Even got a few letters from Villanova, Boston College, West Virginia. But I narrowed it down and ended up choosing UConn.
Yeah, and a great choice. I mean, you came in. They had a pretty they had three guys that I guess were pretty good at that point. Yeah, Timmy Coles and Earl Kelly were the seniors on that team, right? So,
yeah, and
so you came in under Perno, right?
I came in under Perno. He was my first coach. I played 1 year with him, and then this ironic how it happened. We ended up playing Northeastern. Jim Calhoun was coaching Northeastern, and he had Reggie Lewis on his team.
Mm-hmm.
And we played them at the Hartford Civic Center. And I had to check Reggie Lewis as a freshman. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so he welcomed me into the playing big-time basketball. And they beat us. And then the following year, Jim Calhoun became my coach.
So I got to ask you this, because I know Perno, they talked about it, and, that how much time he had to spend to get you, and and how many times he'd seen you, 30, 40, 50 times. But I do want to ask you, because you brought it up. So you played 1 year from Perno, and then you started playing for Calhoun. What was the difference like, or just describe the difference of a Calhoun coach team versus a Perno coach team?
Okay, I only played one year with Perno, but the mentality, Howie Dickerman was my assistant coach with Perno.
Love Howie.
Right.
Yeah,
yep.
Good guy, real good guy. We still stay in touch to this day. The mentality was different. As soon as I met Jim Calhoun, he came. He called me and Cliff Robinson up to the office. He met with us one by one because me and Cliff became, the star players there. And he called us one by one. Cliff went in first. When Cliff came out, Cliff said, "Be honest, talk, and be real with him," like that. And I said, "Okay." It was a quick pass. He passed me and said that. So when I went in the office, I said, "How you doing?" I said, "How you doing, man?" I said, "How you doing, man?" And right then and there, he said, "Son, don't you never call me man again." He said, "You call me Coach Calhoun, or you call me Mr. Calhoun, or you call me Coach." And that right there set the tone, because it was a little different from Don Perno. Don Perno was a real good man, nice man. I even stay in touch with him to this day as well. He was a nice guy. I think after 18 or so years, I think it just came to a point where, they needed to change. But the mentality that Jim Calhoun showed me when I called him man, I think that was something that was needed and that I needed, because in middle school, my coach was named Jay Short. I still stay in touch with him as well. He was tough for us. He didn't go for anything, and but we had to earn our respect for him, and we had to. And then also with my high school coach, Dwight Datcher, who passed away, rest his soul, he was tough for us, and coming in and being around, I was used to that, and with Don Perno, he was a really nice guy. He was a really nice guy, but I think we needed somebody a little tougher at the time, because my freshman year, walking onto the Hartford Civic Center, it was different, because Cliff Robinson came from a winning tradition in Buffalo. I came from a winning tradition, and then we walked onto the floor at the Hartford Civic Center, and you see the fans with bags on their head. That was a little different. That was like,
Yeah, listen, that had to take you. What were you thinking to yourself when you saw that? Because I remember those days.
Yes, it was like I looked at Cliff, and we kind of looked at each other, and we walked past. We was talking to each other, and I said, wow. He said, man, we got a long way to go.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, we do. So, and I knew we was when I signed there, I knew we was at the bottom. I really knew. I knew we was at the bottom. I knew we had Earl Kelly, we had Tim Coles, Eddie Williams. I think Jerry Besselink was
Eddie,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, and Terry Coffey. So it was some guys there, but they was still at the bottom. So it was kind of tough. But I got the I kind of earned my position because Terrence Warren was on the team as well. But he would leave and go to New Jersey and missing practice. And so I was eager, I was on fire, I wanted to play, I wanted to get out there and play, and that was his spot. But he kept missing practice. And so that's how he missed practice one day, and Don Perno came to me and he said, hey, it's up to you to keep this spot. And so that's how I ended up starting in that position with Earl Kelly. And I only played a few games with Earl Kelly because there was some stuff that happened on campus, and
yeah,
but he was I learned a lot from Earl. I mean, he was an awesome player. He was awesome.
He can really go, right? I mean, I
go.
remember playing against him for sure.
Yeah. So
now Calhoun takes over. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, normally under those kind of conditions, he brings his guys in. You're technically a Perno guy, right? Because Perno recruited you.
Yes.
How did that dynamic work when he came in?
It was a little different, because when you're not playing for your coach who recruited you, but
right.
At least we had our head assistant there, Howie Dickman, so that helped. But you had to earn your way with Coach Calhoun. He didn't go for it. He didn't go for it. I'm not going to go to class. I'm going to show up to practice late. Those are things that was happening my freshman year, and those were things he just wasn't having. So it was different, but you had to earn your spot. You had to earn your playing time. So and I must admit, I was in the best shape of my life by playing with him. I mean,
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, he had. It was on a campus. It was a cemetery, but it was a hill, and it had a path to go all the way up the hill, all the way up the cemetery, and jog down. So we ran that cemetery quite often. Yeah.
So he was a no-nonsense guy. So talk about, if you can, talk about what happened. I mean, I know a couple of you guys got jammed up where you missed some games because of him kind of teaching you a lesson for stuff, right? I mean, if you look back at it now, Phil, I mean, that was a valuable lesson. It was you and Cliff, right?
Yes, it was. And I mean, that was something we had to go through. Myself, coming from, being a star player and coming in, then I'm starting as a freshman. Kind of got a little big head. Didn't want to do everything that I was supposed to do my freshman year, and it came back to haunt myself and Cliff our sophomore year. So basically, hanging out, partying, getting up, getting to class late, those things, they came back to haunt us. And they came back to haunt us. As a matter of fact, we was playing our sophomore year, we was playing Georgetown in D.C., so I gave out all these tickets for my family to come. But my brother found out, my oldest brother, he was in Florida, and he picked up the USA Today. And he called my mother and told my mother, he said, after this game that because my nickname in the house was Poncho. So that was the nickname, Poncho. He said, after Poncho played his game in D.C. against Georgetown, he's not going to play the next 15 games. So I ended up calling my mother, say, hey, we come to D.C. to play this game and stuff like that. And then she just came out of nowhere and she said, isn't it something else you have to tell me? And I said, no. I said, what are you talking about, Mom? She said, I'm going to ask you one more time. Isn't it something you have to tell me? And so I went on and I said, yeah, because Jim Calhoun had already told us that we wasn't going to play no more after we played against Georgetown. And so I went on and told her, and she said, I know. She said, your brother saw it in the USA Today.
Wow.
And she said, you're the first to go to college. And she said, so I know you're going to do what's right. You're going to get your grades up. You're going to get back on because you love to play basketball. I said, yes. So I got my grades up. I got back on the team. And the following year, it paid off. It paid
Yeah.
off. We won the NIT.
In spades, that paid off.
Yeah.
But let me just say, I just want to stick with this for a second, Phil. And because it is so easy to fall into that trap because we had somebody named Dr. Helen Lafferty. I'll never forget it. I thank her every time I see her. I give her a big hug and a kiss and say thank you. Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have got through Villanova either. Similar situation, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where, and you have to be put on a schedule because nobody teaches you in high school how to manage your time. Time management is a huge thing when you're playing college sports and at a high level. It's a huge thing. And, we would get done. I don't know how it was with practice for you guys, but in Sonny's case, Sonny really didn't have to worry about this stuff. He was a 4.0 student, Phil, so he never had to worry. He's a dentist,
But before
he's
you
not
go
on the same level as us, Phil. I'm just saying.
Deep, though, the one thing that you also, and you guys both can relate, is you have to also manage your emotions.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
It's a roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster, and I must admit, we had study hall, but nobody was studying. We had nobody.
Our study halls were terrible. Yeah.
Study halls are terrible.
Yeah,
you had an assistant coach who he was. It was at the end of the day, he didn't want to be there either. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And here's the other thing. Like I would talk to Sonny about this off the show, a number of times, but we would get let out of practice like at 5:45.
Mm-hmm.
The cafeteria closed at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to tell guys on your floor, hey, grab me a burger or whatever they got, make a plate for me because I got to sprint to get to eat.
Yeah.
So now you get there. Now you get to your dorm. It's a little after 7 o'clock, and all the idiots now are out in the hallway and they're doing whatever college kids do, right?
Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But now they got all their stuff done. So now they could do whatever they want to do. Now you're running around, you join in the lunacy on the dorm.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, oh shit, I didn't do my paper that's due tomorrow, and it's 11 o'clock at night.
Yes.
So, I totally get it. And, and listen, I'm sure you look back on it today, having lived a life as you have, and you look back and you say, man, thank God for Calhoun doing that because somebody had to step up and do that. And so I had it done to me. Everybody who's played has had a similar circumstance, Phil. So, I take my hat off to you for making the corrections and getting back into it like you did,
Yeah. I must admit it was tough times because we was on campus. We even had some fans, we were walking on campus and we had some fans were riding by in their car and they would say, you dummies, you're supposed to be on the team. You're supposed to be helping. I mean, we got called so many names.
Oh, I bet.
It was tough times, but it was a learning experience. And I guess that woke me up. That woke myself up. That woke Cliff up because I must admit, we knew that library like the back of our hands. And on top of that,
you did.
Yeah. And on top of that, when Jim Calhoun came, he did put a tutor in place for us. He had us in study hall. And we could not miss. I mean, if you miss, you might as well don't come to practice. You might as well be prepared to miss a game. But when we got back on the team, our grades was up. We worked out. We won the championship. So it was just lovely. Hard work paid off, and And just like you said, it was a learning experience, and and it taught me a lot. And so I even used that to some of the juveniles that I work with, being a juvenile probation officer. I kind of throw that story out to them about not giving up, that I wanted it. I wanted to, do well. I wanted to get my degree. And I did. I finished, got my
Man,
degree,
that's great.
so I'm one of the ones that did get the degree. So that's what I look back on, because I'm the first in my family to do so. And it was a big deal.
Yeah, that's
So
huge.
I
That's
got to
huge.
ask you, because you said Coach Calhoun, first meeting, son, I am not man, I am Coach Calhoun. So he established this is how it's going to be. And then it's almost like, okay, you tested him. And he said, oh, no, I'm going to take my two best players and I'm going to suspend them. Right.
Yep, exactly.
You have to like admire and really respect a man who does what he says.
Exactly. I
Right.
totally agree, because we had baseball players, we had soccer players on the team, because myself and Cliff, wasn't on the team. So he went and got Greg Economo. But Greg Economo was a good shooter. He could shoot the ball. But we had soccer players, baseball players. We had walk-ons. I was just like, wow. And we was watching the game, my Cliff and myself, and we was looking. We were like, wow. It really hurt us to see that, how we were playing out there, that we were getting beat, and people were just laughing at us when they went on the floor. And I was like, wow. So that was really a tough time, and we felt like we let them down. And our thing was to come back and get our grades up, and win some type of championship. And the NIT
Yeah.
was that.
Great
Yeah.
motivator.
Well,
A great
no,
motivator.
well, yeah, exactly. I think, if you look at Coach Calhoun, he's a Hall of Famer, and there's a reason for that, right, Phil? I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
he was ahead of his time. He was looking at the bigger picture. He knew
He knew.
exactly what he was doing by calling the two of you guys out. Those,
Mhm.
you particularly,
Okay.
and Cliff. I mean, I think he really knew the long term what would happen, and you guys would both go on to be great players at the university.
Mhm.
So while we're talking about Cliff, Cliff, as some of you know, may or may not know, has passed away now. He was a great player at
Yes.
UConn. You guys were close. Talk about your relationship with Cliff, and what kind of guy. And he was on one of my favorite shows. I remember him on Survivor. We talked about that too, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It was a difficult time, because we were close. I kind of choke up about it, man, because we was real close, real tight. And I met him through Sharon, Pennsylvania. We would go down there to play AAU basketball, and he would come down from Buffalo, from New York, and they had Dave Rivers on his team and so forth. So, and then Howie Dickerman came down there, and I spoke to Howie one time, and he said that we're trying to recruit you and Cliff, and if y'all come there, y'all can be y'all can do some good stuff there. And so one time Cliff comes in the gym in Sharon, Pennsylvania. He comes in with a big radio on his shoulder. He walks in with the big radio, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I said, I think that's him right there. So eventually, I got over to him, and I introduced myself to him, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "I heard you trying to go to UConn." I said, "Yeah." He said, He said, "I am true. I am too." He said, "But I haven't, confirmed it, and I haven't confirmed it either." So we exchanged numbers. We talked, and then the following year, we back at Sharon, Pennsylvania AAU tournament, and we looked at each other and basically said, "Yeah, I'm going to UConn." He said, "I'm going to UConn," and so that's how the friendship started right there. So we went to UConn. We was roommates. We was roommates on the road. Everywhere you went, it was Phil, Cliff. You saw Cliff. You saw Phil. It was back and forth. So everybody used to get
Yeah.
our names mixed up. People used to come to me and say, they used to call me Cliff. I was like, nah, I'm not 6'10". I'm not 6 feet. I'm
Yeah.
not. That's Cliff over there. They would come to me. Cliff was a nice guy, but he had this scowl on his face that made you think he was a really mean guy. You know what I mean? So they would come to me and say, "Hey, can you ask Cliff? Can I have his autograph? Can I have his autograph?" And I was like,
Let me talk to the good cop.
Right. Let me
yeah,
talk to the good cop. Yeah. Right.
yeah, because they saw me as the good guy and stuff. And I said, "Hey," I said, "Cliff, he wants your autograph." And Cliff said, well, he ain't asked me. So I said, see, all you do is ask him. And so that's how, things like that happened around with me and Cliff. I mean, we would, it was times that we was running late for practice. And it snowed so much in Storrs, Connecticut, man, that one morning we run into practice and I mean, no socks on, just our shoes, just our sneakers on, and we running through all this snow to get there. And we get on the court 1 minute past ready to practice. And man, we ran that whole practice. He ran us, and he said, see, these are your leaders right here. And they late for practice. Oh my God, man. We ran so much that day, man. And since that time, we was never late. We was always on time. I mean, Jim Calhoun, he pulled the best out of us. He really did. And but with Cliff, he was our big dog. He was our big dog. We knew who to go to. He didn't start right away his freshman year. I started, but we knew who to go to when we needed a point or so.
Yeah.
So we would go to him. Cliff, it was times when I went out to Buffalo. I went out to visit his family and stuff like that. Of course, when we came to DC to play Georgetown, he came to my house to visit my mother and so forth. So we built a good bond with one another. I even got to meet his brothers, his siblings, so forth. So it was it was a touchy situation when I found out he was sick. I talked on the phone with him. I went out to visit with him. And then when I went out to visit with him and he was sick, the last thing he told me, he said, "Don't come back."
Wow.
He said, "Don't come back," and that was kind of tough because he had lost a lot of weight. He had a few strokes, so it was kind of tough. It was kind of tough, and I didn't go back, but I had spent a lot of time out there with him because after trying out with the 76ers and then getting released from them and going overseas, I came back, and then I went out to Portland, and I worked out with him and the team, Clyde Drexler, PJ Carlissimo was out there as well, and so I worked out with the team. I got to play against Clyde Drexler, and Jerome Kersey, Duckworth, and Terry Porter. So that I worked out with them, and I stayed out there with him for like 2 months, just spending time with him and so forth. And then I ended up leaving and coming back to the East Coast, and then I was trying to look to see where I was going to go, how basketball was going to go for me. So I ended up going back overseas. I went back over to South Korea, playing over there and so forth. But it's a friendship that I'll never forget. I look back on some memories we have. I laugh sometimes about when I see certain I look at pictures that I have of him, and it was just a touchy time, and and he took care of me when I was out there, because we had a goal. The goal was for both of us to make it, and I fell short of my goal, but I remember him telling me, he said you still made it, right? That's when basketball came to an end for me, and he was still playing in the NBA. He said you still made it. He said you got to look at where you came from, and he said you got to look at where you came from, that you got your degree, you got to travel the world, you got to meet different people and so forth. So at the time I wasn't trying to hear that.
Yeah, right.
I was still trying to play basketball, but
Yeah.
I look back years later, and and I understood what he was saying, because everybody's not going to make it the way that he made it. But I would do it all over again. But he said those words, and I took it to heart. Because I look at it that because I look back on some of my friends back in Southwest DC where I grew up. Some didn't make it out of there. Some strung out on drugs. Some didn't get an education. So those are some of the things that happened back there. And me and you talked also about another player that Cliff.
I was just going to bring him up. Yeah, I was just going to bring him up. So you talking about we made it, we got out, So talk about your buddy Perry Carter. I mean, now we get in your junior year. You guys have a great year. You get to the championship of the NIT, and I want to go through that run. But before we do, I think this is a perfect time to talk about Perry and how you guys were buddies, and you got to meet one of your best friends in the championship game of the NIT. So tell that story, Phil.
Yeah, that was that was a great story. Perry Carter. I was a few years ahead of him, but we grew up in DC, Southwest DC, and we grew up a lot of. There was a lot going on in Southwest DC. A lot of people strung out on drugs, and back in the '80s, the crack epidemic that came through.
Yeah.
Then you had people dying off, people in our neighborhood. I hate to say it, but people was getting killed. And we grew up around that. We grew up around. We didn't know at the time that we grew up with a hitman that was in our neighborhood. I had mentioned the name to you earlier about that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that really threw us, because we was playing basketball with this guy, and this guy was a hitman going out killing people. And so with Perry and I, we played basketball. I went to Langley Middle School, and then he eventually went to Langley Middle School after me. But and we grew up in some rough times there. Perry, his father wasn't around. My father wasn't around, even though it was 9. All my siblings, we all by the same dad. But Perry's father wasn't there. Perry's brother was in and out of jail. Perry's mother eventually passed away. My mother's still living, and she's 95 years old to this day, man.
God bless, man.
Yeah, and she still gets around, so it's amazing. But Perry used to come to my house. My mom used to fix us something to eat. We would go out and play basketball. I mean, that was something we did every day. And in our neighborhood, we was known to being on the court all day long. And so if somebody saw us somewhere that we shouldn't have been, and it was like a negative area or so forth, my brother would find out. And he would come to me and say, hey, I heard you was at this spot. You don't need to be over there. Don't let me catch you over there again, or so forth. And they would say the same to Perry, because Perry was like a brother to me. But I was a few years ahead of him. And so we played basketball, and Perry was a big guy back then. And we played on the AAU team, myself, John Thompson Jr., and Perry. We was on the AAU basketball team together. And Perry was one that didn't get much playing time at that time, because it was myself and John Thompson, his son, getting the time, because Perry was young, he was learning. But then me and Perry talked about it. We ended up playing. Perry came to visit at UConn, and we took him around, myself and Cliff. We took him around the campus and so forth. And then a couple of weeks later, he gave me a call. He said, hey, I would love to come to UConn and hang out, and play ball there. But he said, I feel like I'm going to go to Ohio State. And I said, hey, I understand. I said, but if you come here, we can do some good things with you here. And he said, I understand. He said, but now our friendship gonna stay the same, right? I said, of course it's gonna stay the same. So he ended up going to Ohio State. And in 1988, we played Boston College. We played Boston College in the semifinals in Madison Square Garden. And that was a tough game to win, because that's when Dana Burrows, he kind of went off on us in the first half. I think he had like 20-something points in the first half. And then Lyman the Priest came out and played big time defense on him and stopped him. He only scored 2 points in the second half. So we went on to win that game. And then I knew Perry was there. So I went to the hotel, myself and Cliff. We went to his hotel room. And so he came out, he came to the door. We started talking, laughing and stuff like that. And so Cliff said, hey, I'm going to go back to the hotel room. So I stayed with Perry, and we got to talking. We went walking in the lobby and stuff. We sat down in the lobby and we started talking. And then we kind of looked at each other and started laughing. And I said, wow, man, this is wow. I said, who would have thought that we'd be playing against each other? Grew up in the same neighborhood, friends, you eating at my house, I'm eating at your house. And look at us now. We're playing against each other in an NIT championship. He said, yeah. He said, and he looked at me and he said, man, we got out. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, we got out, man. And what he was talking about was the way we grew up in that neighborhood. We could have got killed. We could have got hooked on drugs. We could have got locked up. It was just so much going on there. And every time you turn around, it was a fight or something like that. And me and Perry was on the court from sun up to sundown during the summertime, and playing on different teams. So we was always away, playing on AAU teams, doing something positive, which was basketball. And that was our way that we got out. And so after we talked in the lobby at the hotel, I said, we looked at each other, we hugged each other. I said, good luck tomorrow. I said, but we must win this game. he said the same thing with me. He said we must win this game. So we ended up winning the game. So to this day, he was my groomsman in my wedding, and
That's great.
he lives down in Florida, and he didn't want to leave Florida, but I said, Bert, man, you got to leave Florida to come to my wedding. Man. You got to leave because he said Florida was he loved Florida and it helped his knees. He said because of the heat. He said it
Yeah.
helped his knees and helped his back. So he ended up coming to my wedding. He was my groomsman there, and we still stay in touch to this day. And I got a few pictures that I sent to him from time to time just to remind him of that championship game.
I'm sure one of those is that iconic photo of you and the and two of your teammates standing on top of the backboard, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a picture that whenever they talk about that game, that's the one that's the picture, right?
exactly.
How
And
the hell did you guys get up there, first of all?
they bum rushed the floor at the end of the game. They bum rushed the floor. And next thing I know, we getting pushed up there. We getting lifted up there. And myself and Jeff King and Spider Ursery eventually got up there. His name is Robert, or we call him Spider.
Right.
He eventually got up there. But the picture shows the picture that they have that goes around in the state of Connecticut. And they got it up in Gamble Pavilion on campus as well. This is Jeff King and myself. So we got help from fans to get up there. And I look back on it, man. I had some, those two guys are not around anymore. I lost,
Yeah.
I lost Cliff, I lost Jeff, and I lost Robert Ursery. And in my freshman year in college, Jeff King was my roommate. I lost those guys. Those guys went on to, they passed away. But yeah, that was an exciting time. I mean, we got back in the middle of the night on campus, and they ended up burning couches, and
Really?
they had a bonfire. It was ridiculous, man. I mean, everybody was out. We was coming down this long road, and the bus driver stopped, and the coach, I think it was Howie Dickman, he said, "Be quiet." He yelled, "Be quiet," and you could hear all this noise from how we was like a mile away. And you can just hear all this noise because UConn has never won a postseason tournament before, and so they
Right.
NITs, and so it wasn't a big tournament, but it wasn't the NCAA, but it was the first tournament that postseason
National championship.
Yeah.
Exactly, it was a championship, and it was only two champions, and we was one of them.
That's right.
And so I mean, they burned couches. It went on
Jeez.
for a while.
So Phil, I got to ask you. So now you see how far UConn has come as a program, right?
Yes.
You guys were the guys that started it all, though. I mean, we have an expression at Villanova. It says, and this is from Jay Wright.
Mm-hmm.
We play for those who came before us. Okay.
Yes.
Now I know that these guys at UConn, they do a great job, we talk to Chris a lot, Smith.
Yes.
And, a lot of those guys come back. How cool was it? And I know, I've read this because we do our due diligence here. Sonny can tell you, we're professional journalists, right, Sonny?
We are.
Yes,
So listen. So I know it meant a lot to you when Kemba looked up at that photo and said, "Hey, you're the guy that was up there. You started the whole thing," and that whole thing. I mean, that has to be pretty cool feeling for you and your teammates to know that these guys that came on after you, that won national championships and everything, credit you guys for starting it all. What is that like?
It's amazing. I never forget, that there's always somebody that played before us. And, of course, it was Earl Kelly, there was Tim Coles, Eddie Williams, Jerry Besselink, Jeff King, those guys, that played before us. So I always give them much love because they had to do what they had to do. And then the next group had to come in and take over and do what we had to do. So I look back on that and I say from what we did, we kind of set a little standard by winning that championship. And, and then Chris Smith came in my senior year, was his freshman year. He came in, and when we got him in practice, I used to see him dribble the ball, and I used to be like, oh my goodness, I got to check this guy sometimes in practice. And he was a freshman, and I was saying this as a senior. And just to set that standard and win that NIT tournament, and then we build on that and went back to the NIT, and then right after that, then you have other players with Chris Smith was there, with Tate George, Steve Peichel. Steve Peichel now the coach at Rutgers now.
Yep.
I stay in touch with him. I shoot him a text from here time to time. Of course with Chris. So I try to not forget that we have some good players that came before us, but also some players that like myself and Cliff, we kind of helped with that championship game in NIT. And so I look at it and I say, wow, like Rip Hamilton, Ray Allen, Kemba Walker, Charlie Villanueva, all those guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All those guys that, when I went up there to a game and, Charlie Villanueva come up to me and say, he said, hey, old timer. And I like to hear that name, old timer, because and he gave me a hug, so these guys, and then Ray Allen, just to be around him, because we used to play in these all-star games that Jim Calhoun used to have. He used to bring us back to play in them. And those guys really respected us, man. They really showed us love. They didn't act like they was bigger than, even though I didn't make it like they made it, they still looked at me as one of the great players that played there, and they showed me love. They showed us love. They showed, talking to Rip Hamilton one day, we'd just sit and talk with him. These guys were just down to earth, and they would show us love and say, hey, y'all started this, we just picked it up and ran with it, that's what they got.
And that was all Coach Calhoun, right? Having everybody come back, and now Danny is falling right into that same thing. I know you guys do a lot of stuff with the basketball alumni. They go to games and stuff, and it's easier when you're winning. I think, Phil, right? I mean,
yes,
it's not so easy when the ball starts to bounce the other way. But I think it's great that they recognize the past to celebrate the current. I mean, and it makes everybody feel like they're a part of it, and it's really great. It's really great to see. Really.
I look back on it, when I went up to matter of fact, I went to a St. John's game. My wife and I took her up there to UConn. It was on Gamble Pavilion, and I took her up there. No, it was at the Hartford Civic Center, and I took her up there to see the game. UConn ended up losing that game. That's when they had they ended up losing the game. But Chris Smith was there. Howie Dickman showed up, and so I got to go over and meet Danny Hurley's father and so forth. But he bring us back. But it's a wonderful feeling that he shows us, because even assistant coaches, they turn around, they wave at you, they acknowledge that you're there. So it's a wonderful feeling that he try to pick up from what Jim Calhoun did. He kind of keep the players around and just But I noticed one thing. I got to back up a little bit. When Jim Calhoun, he wants you there, but if you ain't doing good and doing what you're supposed to be doing in the community and trying to strive to do better, and you going to the left, he gonna let you know, and he's not gonna invite you back. So that was a wonderful thing that I see that Dan Hurley is doing. He's bringing back good players that not just play basketball, but some good solid players that's trying to do well off the court as well.
Do you think Coach Calhoun's style and the way he is and how he handled himself with you guys, do you think that would fly in today's world, Phil?
Great question.
I think it would, because I look at Dan Hurley, man. He's feisty, and he gets.
Hurley's close, but I mean, listen. Close, but I think the F-bomb count is higher with Coach Calhoun than with Danny.
I think it's close. I think that's pretty close.
Listen, I talked to him on the phone. He dropped 47 of them on me. Exactly. And I didn't even play for him. I asked him, "You need me to get on the line, Phil?" That's what I told him. I said, "You need me to get on the line, Coach." I felt like I was talking to Coach Mass.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Coach have said some things to us to get us fired up. I mean, we was losing against. We was winning. We was up by 15, and then eventually against St. John's at the Hartford Civic Center. We went in the locker room. We went in the locker room. We were down by 2 or 3 or something like that. He went in the locker room. He picked up the big water cooler, and he threw the water cooler. And he had the chalkboard, and that chalkboard that spins around. He kicked his foot through the chalkboard. His leg got caught up in there. So he's cussing, he's laughing, we're laughing. I mean, we're trying not to laugh, but he caught us laughing. And he said, you MFers, you're laughing. You need to laugh and do well on the court. I mean, he would go off, but he motivated us. He really did. And then, I mean, it was some fun times, but he will let you know when you're doing wrong.
That's like a kid getting his foot stuck in the jungle gym on
Yeah,
that.
there's no doubt about that. I've
Was,
had similar circumstances with Coach Mass. That's for sure.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's different now though, Phil. I mean, you talked about the way he talked to you, and some of the things that happened with you and Cliff and other players. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, listen, they got the portal now. You weren't going nowhere, right? I mean,
yeah.
You could have easily said if it was 2024 and the same situation happened, you could easily say, "Screw this, man. I'm leaving. I'm getting in the portal." And in a week, you could be playing for somebody else in the Big East.
Yep, I see what you're saying because nowadays they can just jump ship just like that. I understand.
Yeah.
And Coach Calhoun, his mentality was a little different. I think Dan Hurley has some of it, but he doesn't have. Jim Calhoun was a little bit tougher, a little bit tougher. But I think Danny's a little bit tougher. But he also I like Danny's mentality as well. But Jim Calhoun was just a little tough. And nowadays, since they can leave and get up and go to another team, I think we'll have a lot of transfers if Jim Calhoun is coaching right now. I'm pretty sure.
Well, listen, I think Danny does a great job with that. Because I think when it was our age group guys growing up, you were kind of looking, depending on your background too, Phil. You're coming from a tough neighborhood. You're looking for that type of discipline in your life, really. I mean, and you may not have expressed it verbally or said it, but inside, if you really looked at what was going on in here, we all needed that kind of stuff, right? I mean,
yes, I totally agree because from elementary school, middle school, high school, and then get to college, all my coaches were tough on me. It was tough on me. And my dad wasn't around for me, even though he was living, I met him, but he wasn't there. He wasn't, him and my mom divorced and so forth. But all my coaches played a positive role in my life. And then Jim Calhoun. So all my coaches were tough on me. They didn't let me make excuses. And Jim Calhoun was definitely that person. Didn't want to hear about the excuses. He wanted you to, wipe your tears and get back out there and let's do it again.
Let's go, yeah.
Yeah, let's go. So, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I would play for him again.
I'll tell you what, though, Coach Hurley and Coach Calhoun are about winning the chip.
Yes.
I mean, they make no bones about it. I remember Danny. They said, "You better get to us early because we're going to be tough to beat later." Exactly. And I think the bar is set, and UConn now, they always say the blue bloods. UConn's a blue blood.
Yes.
UConn's legit across the board. And I hope they never leave the Big East because I think that was the best thing, them coming back. But the standard is, and he talks about that. That's our standard.
Yes, exactly. And I look at it with Jim Calhoun won championships. Dan Hurley won championships. So if Dan Hurley decide to go one day, whoever steps in, they have some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So, but I look at it as just across the way you got Gino Auriemma. He's winning tradition there. So basketball is just a winning tradition at UConn. So.
Yep. I mean, it's funny because you talk about the term blue blood, Sonny, right? And I don't understand the people that do not include UConn in that conversation. How many chips do they have to win? They got 6, right? I mean, they have 6, 6 titles. That's a lot. I mean, I don't understand why that is an issue where they're going, well, I don't know. How could you not know? You know what I mean, son? It's great.
And the way I look at it, I think sometimes we don't get the recognition like some other universities.
You could say it, Phil. Duke and North Carolina. You could say it.
It's
you
okay.
could say it.
Duke,
Kentucky.
North Carolina. Yes,
you could say it.
We're tight with Billis. Don't worry. It'll be all right.
We are,
I'll be honest with you, being down here in North Carolina, right? There's a lot of schools down here, and I walk around with my UConn stuff on. And I get a lot of looks. I get like, nah, this is North Carolina town. This is North Carolina State. This is Duke State. They talk about Wake Forest. There's a lot of schools there, North Carolina State. So, but I wear my Husky down here proudly.
Yeah, you know what? I get it. So we're getting close to wrapping this up here now, Phil. Last question for you. Give us one of your best memories of that championship NIT run. Give us one good story that you'll always take with you, whether it's the last game or building up to the last game. Give us a good UConn story in terms of the 88 team.
The way I look at it is we had myself and Cliff, but also the rest of my teammates, of course, because we couldn't do it without them. And we had good players like Lyman DePriest, Tate George, myself, Cliff Robinson, Jeff King, Robert Ursery, Murray Williams, all those guys, Greg Economo, all those guys that played on the team with us. That's a memory that I'll never forget. We build a bond that when we see each other, the first thing we just start laughing when we see each other. And, because we built a bond that would never be forgotten. And then, just to win that first championship, but also it was icing on the cake for myself and Cliff Robinson to get our grades up and get back on that team. So,
yeah.
And because we feel like we let them down. And to get our grades up to get back on the team, to win that championship, and to see Jim Calhoun smile, Howie Dickerman, and the rest of the players that played on that team the year before, it was a big deal. It was a big deal for me as well as Cliff because we talked about it. But that was a great memory just as a team. I can't leave anybody out. It was a team, yeah. Coaches. That was a great moment right there. So I got to leave it all to all of us. We did it. We won that championship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a team effort for sure. Well, Phil, thanks so much for joining us tonight on the Big East Rewind. We appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking time to hang with us and talking about the old days and stuff. We always have a good time when we talk to the UConn guys. So if you would stick around for a couple minutes, we're going to wrap this up, and then I want to talk to you off the air for a second. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
You've been watching and listening to the Big East Rewind with Sonny Sparrow and Chuck Everson. The Big East Rewind is produced and directed by Nick Chico Corus and Daryl Gurney. Check us out on the Sirius XM app. We're out there on Sirius XM and on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Phil.